And Barbara, if you may introduce yourself, we will start off soon with a couple of slides. The scenario of the webinar goes, we will explain how the project went, what are the outcomes, and we hopefully will have some kind of a discussion later.
Yeah, so welcome on my behalf too. I am Barbara. I'm Dutch. I am working for Catapult, which is an NGO from the Netherlands. We are a catalyzer for public-private partnerships. We have a network of more than 550 public-private partnerships in the Netherlands. And of course, we are also involved in the Centers of Vocational Excellence internationally. And I'm very happy to have been working in the AIRinVET project, the Applied Innovation and Research in Vet Education. And I'm happy to share the results with you today.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And we as Eurassia, we are also very much involved in higher education and the bridging sector, so to say, the bridging area between the higher vet and higher education. We are representing applied science universities. Therefore, it was very interesting experience to understand how ambitious the sector of the vet centers who are aiming to also expand their area of interest in the applied research, which is often done in collaboration with the University of Applied Science and in a very high collaboration with the local stakeholders, with economies, with the SMEs in the certain regions and so on. We're going to try to present that together to you. And bear in mind, it was a very exploratory project. It was part of the exploratory call of the European Commission. Therefore, the term in itself, applied research, is done, it's happening, but the definition, how applied research is named in the different places in Europe differs from each other. There are different models of engagement, there are different models of this of collaboration, and there is a different setting. Sometimes it's more formal, sometimes it's based on the private partnerships, private-public partnerships, and sometimes it simply is part of the activities of the vet centers, but there is no clear agenda how to support that. So all of that caused this project activities very interesting to map out, to find out whether that compares anyhow, that is similar anyhow over European countries, and not only because we had countries outside from Europe as well collaborating with us. But we try to map how this ecosystem works, where we are at now. So I'll start with a couple of slides. You will have a chance to get a bit understanding what the project was about, but obviously this webinar is more for showcasing you that it happened, but all the results and outcomes you will have a chance to find on our web pages. So I'll start sharing now our slides in there, and we will go for some content. So prepare your coffee and have a nice hour ahead. I hope you see my slide.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So as I've been saying, our team was international one, as it's usually the case in the European project. We had people from coordinators were from the Basque country. It's Technica. It's the organization that facilitates in the Basque region the collaboration between vet and SMEs and creating the whole ecosystem by the mandate of the Basque government. We had also associated organizations from the Basque country that is collaborating on a daily basis with Technica. So, for example, the organizations that facilitates the transfer of the researchers and the teachers and matching the correct skills and the needs from SMEs to the right vet centers to navigate this ecosystem. From Germany, we had the Hansa Parliament, the NGO that represents plenty, because a couple of good thousands of NGOs around the Baltic region and way more, the Hansa Parliament, and the Berufliche Hochschule Hamburg, which is a small institution, but very relevant for the Hamburg ecosystem, dealing with exactly actually the vet center. But of course, what was interesting that each of those countries, so Basque, Germany, and you also see here Netherlands, all of those ecosystems has a different approach to how or to organize the skills transfer in their regions. Therefore, on the case of Germany, we are dealing with a very established system of the Fachhochschule and the professional chambers of different trades. So therefore, it was a very good example to add to that. On the Netherlands, we had Catapult and ISO, and Catapult you've already heard what's about the public-private partnership facilitator. coordinator in the Netherlands. And in Belgium, it's Jurasha to grasp the policy understanding and actually cater this up with plenty of recommendations to the European partners, because that was the overarching idea as well, to bring the European understanding on that topics. I'd like to put you a short video before we actually go further, because that might be easier way to understand whole project just in a 3-minute video. So let's have a chance to do that. I think I need to share it with the sound. I have it in the sound.
We can already hear the sound, Jakob. It's
Perfect.
Vocational education and training participate in applied innovation and research activities. The European Commission has called for centres of vocational excellence to support local businesses in innovation and green and digital transitions. Our objective is to define the role of VET in research and innovation by proposing a European reference framework for applied innovation and research in vocational education and training. To do this, we will follow a research, development, implementation and recommendation process on how to implement applied research in VET. The first step for the mapping of applied research has been to develop a glossary and a business model canvas of vocational education and training applied research to establish common terms. With these tools, we are carrying out interviews to gather knowledge from different experiences, countries, and organisations. From that diversity, we will identify case studies of successful collaborations between vocational education and training centres and companies finding solutions to existing problems. The second step will involve understanding the mindsets of educational agents, industrial representatives, and communities towards applied research. Then we will identify the enablers and barriers we need to overcome. In the third step, we will create a roadmap for the centres to integrate applied research activities in their organisations, taking into account different maturity levels. This will be the AIRinVET Applied Research and Innovation Framework. The fourth step to complete the process will be to facilitate interactions among different approaches. Online sessions will be done for partners and attendants from different countries to share their activities. We will gather conclusions and recommendations for organisations to implement applied research innovation activities. Through the AIRinVET project, we aim to drive European economic growth and support the green and digital transition by promoting applied innovation and research in vocational education and training for SMEs and industry. Would you like to have your applied research experience within VET education showcased in our project? Join us.
Yes, so very quickly, that was in a nutshell what the project was about. Unfortunately, last couple of seconds, it's not applicable anymore. We did the mapping. We did the sorry.
Did you know that vocational education and training participate in
second,
applied innovation and research activities?
Yes, excuse me for that. It was very loud in my speakers. Still the video in the loop. Okay, so indeed, the couple of last seconds of this video wasn't really applicable anymore, because we did the mapping. We asked over 80 institutions about their experiences with application of applied research, with the strategy that they have or not have, actually, and the reasons why they might not have a clear strategy yet on implementation applied research, on the local ecosystems, the policies supporting this applied research agenda, and the funding mechanism that they might have, or they might have a certain opinions and comments about, because it's often the case that the funding for applied research is not defined simply because the term in itself and the very ambitious agenda of plenty of VET centers in Europe doesn't really correlates with certain funding sources. So it has to be established from the very basic understanding and architecture of the funding system. And those activities being mentioned directly in the funding streams. That's one of the barriers that was actually mentioned by many vet centers in our project. So what we did mapping. We understood the key problems and challenges that applied research institutions might have, and those challenges and issues might start from the institutional perspective, name it by the capacity, name it by the readiness for starting this agenda. We will hear about it more from Barbara about the whole institutional approach and the tools that possibly that you can use as a vet center if you are here from the vet center or suggested to your institutions. And also from the angle of exactly system reality. So how does policy and financing supports the growth of applied research in vocational education training? Then we are talking about the building bridges. So how also to navigate the establishment of such ecosystems? What kind of meetings, tools, and collaborations are necessary to develop this kind of bridges to understand each other? Because it's often the case that we are doing things separately, but we are not really naming it and seeing the common framework and the connecting points between each other institutions. So the development of the idea how to build bridges, and we also developed a couple of ready-to-go interventions as the modules for the local ecosystems and vet centers to understand each other better in the system. It can be also taken out, translated to the local context, and provided as a session on the go. The implementation and the structures for applied research will be mentioned later on, and the set of recommendations that came from all of this work we've provided. One will be embedded in the framework, because the framework gives some sort of a guidance what needs to be worked on, but the recommendations on the European and national or regional level are more relevant for the policymakers actually to understand what could facilitate establishment of the well-working applied research in vet ecosystem, in the vet systems, in the vet centers in your region and country. So we did also the glossary, because starting point is a common language. So we were, even within the consortium, not really cohesive in how we are naming certain things. The research and AIRinVET for some means something else for different partners. For example, the different countries have a different names and nomenclature for the different parts. So it was very important to have a common language, and at least the open-ended glossary provided the common unified language on what we wanted to do. There we, of course, carried on those interviews, mapping the whole network. We provided the decision tree, allowing for a more smooth decision taking, the framework, self-assessment tool, and the roadmap. And at the end, what is not here, the recommendations. So the glossary provided, as I'm saying, the shared language, the main research innovation type of activities, for example, terms as basic research, applied research, experimental development, production, commercialization. All of this is used in the language of the vet centers and of the whole sector that has to be unified. Methods of conducting research, the main type of activities conducted in research innovation, and the results of activities, what we really name that we produce. And the main takeaways are that research methods vary a lot over European ecosystems. Data collection, analysis, the desk research, the hackathon projects, all of those methods varies a lot in the vet center, how vet centers are approaching the applied research. That was also interesting parts of the questions, because we asked actually vet centers how do they organize and how do they include the research in their vet training. As I'm saying again, this is really the part where the vet centers have an ambition to provide and introduce the research to their training activities, because it's also not the case for everybody. We have to put that straight. that not every vet center aims to have applied research in their portfolio, but some of them really does have an ambitions and plays a very important role in the local ecosystems. We looked at the outputs of research and innovation from the vet centers, what kind of products, what prototypes, what implementations, patents are coming from these activities. It all can be found in our reports and the answers to the interviews we had. So all of that you can find in the outcomes of the project on our webpage. There is almost 80 cases followed from interviews described. We looked at the funding also, whether the structure of funding is mostly public or it's more private. Sometimes it's divided. Usually it's combined. Actually, how much part of it comes from the project. Often it's not really quantifiable number, but at least we could have seen the different models that institutions have. We looked at the policies and strategies, what supports the applied research in vet, and also how do they cooperate with the SMEs in their regions. That's another deliverable that's worth to see. What are the SMEs' point of view also from the point of the SMEs towards vet centers. And our partners were, as I've been saying, quite global. Of course, the core consortium was taking place in a couple of countries in Europe, in Spain, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, Basque Country, in Germany. But of course, we interviewed way more examples. We had an associate partner also in New Brunswick College from Canada. That was a very good collaboration to understand how they approach it. And it seemed that the experiential learning and bringing actually the skills allowing for taking applied research by the students was a vital part of their approach. So that's from me for now. Hope that introduction didn't make you leave the webinar. Just starting point here, and you will hear a bit more about the tools that are more applicable and possibly shareable with your vet centers and colleagues that you might have. So Barbara, I'm stop sharing. I think it will be better if you take over the slides.
Yeah, I'll try to share my screen with you. Where did we go with the slides now? This one. Can you see my screen properly?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, that's nice. So we developed some tools. So we already mentioned, like we have a glossary, so to have shared language, we have a mapping tool, and we also made a decision tree. So the decision tree helps vet centers, but also SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, to help them take decisions about research and innovation activities. If they want to cooperate, then what do they need to take into consideration? It goes a bit too far to go into the decision tree right here and now, but I would really like to invite you to go to the website and try it because it's really helpful. So where are we now? We prepared the universal template on the implementation of the framework. We developed a self-assessment tool to understand the starting point and ambitions. The thing is that we did this all because, so if you want to be involved in research and innovation activities and you're working in a vet center, there are a million things you can take into account. And we thought that in itself is quite an obstacle. So what we wanted to do is to develop a framework. So we divided all those things that you need to take into account in various groups that we call dimensions, and we use it like to put under all the elements that you need to take into account. But that's a framework, and that is a frame. We call that the AIRinVET framework. But how do you make that accessible? So what happened is that we wrote a big report about that framework, but still, for people who work at vet centers, that's not. I mean, who's going to read that report? So we decided to make what we call self-assessment tool, and I will take you through that in a minute. And the recommendations that the tool offers in itself, they can be read like a roadmap into research and innovation activities for vet centers. Of course, what we came up with is based on the interviews and the case studies and the people that we talked to and the expertise of the partners of the project, which is great, but it's not extensive. There is room to learn, there is room to add to it. And I think that doesn't take away that I think it's a very good starting point. So our framework looks like this. You can see this is all like all blocks together. And if you take them apart, you can see there's different layers and different elements, the small blocks. So we have divided them in 4 dimensions, which are impact, which is about why do you want to do research and innovation activities? What's the impact you want to make? What motivates you? This kind of things. And then the second one is about the activities. So which activities do you provide as a vet center? What do you already have? The next one is about research and innovation in itself. So what do you want to do? What are you already doing? What do you need when it comes to R&I? And then the fourth one is governance. So if you know all of that, if you know why you want to do it, what you have and what you need, then how do you organize that? That's the governance dimension. I think it's nice to see that we had some insights on the way. So we now call the project is called Applied and Innovation and Research in VET, but in the project we talk about research and innovation activities. We changed that a bit just to have it clear for everyone. So the dimension of impact, it includes your motivation, your mindset. You need an open mindset. The incentives you get, the target groups you aim to reach. What impact do you want to make? For who is that impact meant? The sustainability, so how can you keep going? And of course, to do all of that, you need to assess your research and innovation activities on a regular basis. The second one is activities. And activities of a vet center, of course, include initial education. All vet centers offer that. Associated functions they also have, because some of them have some focus on entrepreneurship. Some of them offer career guidance. Almost everyone works inclusive. That has there is lifelong learning activities or continuous education. So we wanted to include that too. Of course, the academic profile makes a difference, the skills you focus on. And also, of course, like vet centers have an active role in their local or regional innovation ecosystem, and they are already connected with organizations and companies in their region, maybe not as extended as needed to do research together, but they have some role, and they might already be involved in some forecasting, like social developments in society or technological developments that they see coming. So you want to be able to connect to that as well. Then, if you want to do research and innovation, then what capacity do you have? Which research methods can you use? What's the expertise you have? Are your teachers trained to be researchers as well? Do your students know about research? And do they have the skills and capacities? How is your ecosystem? Who would you like to add to it when it comes specifically to research and innovation? Who can be agents to do that? And what outcomes can you come up with? I'll come back to the research outputs later again, because they can have very different forms. And then again, if you know why you want to be involved in research and innovation, what you have and what you need to do research, then you can start into looking how do we organize that, and you get to the dimension of governance. So strategies to do research and innovation, and also identify internal and external barriers and enablers. What policies are in place that help you? What funding is in place? Or what's lacking? What is a barrier that you run into again and again? So that would be forming our roadmap. The why, what do we have, what do we need, and how do we organize it? I think I mentioned it sufficiently already. So what I would like to show you too is that if we want to look into it per vet center, if you want to see where are you standing, what's your current state of affairs when it comes to research and innovation, then it's nice to go through the self-assessment tool. So every layer that we have within the dimensions it includes some statements, and that statements you can rate. You can say no, meaning is not relevant for me because not all vet centers want or can do everything and is not needed neither. So you just click no there. Sometimes you didn't start anything yet, but you're interested. Sometimes you just started, you're a beginner. Sometimes you started and you know what you're doing, you're an intermediate. And sometimes you made everything sustainable. You have implemented research and innovation in your strategies, etc. So you're really advanced. So what we did is to show that you can start wherever you want, because of course we cannot say for every vet center what's most important or most relevant at this very moment. So you can start the self-assessment to wherever you like, on any point you think is relevant at the moment. If you click interested or beginner at some area, we will provide you with recommendations to start or improve what you're doing. Of course, if you are intermediate or advanced and you're curious or think you have still space to learn, you can also have a look at all recommendations. So what happens is that we deliver a graph like this where you can see how you scored. And then based on the lower scores, we provide the recommendations in the self-assessment tool. The recommendations are not extensive, of course. So examples of statements are, for example, we have clear why we want to be involved in research and innovation activities, and we know what motivates us. We are offering expert advice and support to companies already. Our students are receiving training to improve their research and innovation skills. Or, for example, there are policies in place that enable our research and innovation activities. So I would like to show you our tool. I am not going to click the link because it takes a bit of time to enter, because we made it with a login link in order to be able to save the data you enter there. They will be connected to your email account. So if you enter from your link, also other people from your organization could enter to that link and have the same results. So let's see if I can share. Hold on. So this is how it looks online. It's very colorful.
Barbara,
as you see, so here.
Barbara, you have to share
Yeah.
your entire screen because right now we can only see the PowerPoint.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me stop and do it again. Thank you for making me aware.
Yeah, no problem.
So can you see my screen now?
Yes,
That's perfect.
Good. So as you see, here is the self-assessment tool online. As you see, you can see where you are in the block. In the blocks in here, this picture moves with where you are. You can go starting the assessment per dimension. So here in activities, or you only want to look at the research and innovation part, and you can start there by answering statements. You can also do the whole assessment at once. Then you just start here on top. And if you click, then you will see you have here the statement and some further explanations. What do we mean with these statements and how does that relate to research and innovation? And if you click the statements, I just take them random now, then you can download a report which looks like this. It takes a bit of time. No, it doesn't want. I'm sorry, we're still in demo mode. So cannot show you the results right now. That's a pity because it can look very nice. Can I say print report and see if it happens? No, I didn't click enough results probably. Oh, sorry. So let me share the PowerPoint with you again. Oh. You see my PowerPoint again?
Yes.
Yes, it's there.
Okay. So some examples of recommendations we would offer based on the results of this self-assessment tool are to use a variety of research methods and outcomes. So research methods, we already mentioned it before, they can vary from focus groups to questionnaires to desk research to also prototyping. So prototyping can be a way of a learning process, but it can also be a result. And the outcomes can therefore also vary very much. Vet schools are not universities. They do not deliver, or most of them don't deliver journal articles on a scientific magazine or journal. They deliver products, prototypes, proofs of concept, patents, all these kind of things. That is the research result. Also, we make the recommendation to offer training to teachers and students to improve their R&I skills, to foster an open mindset. It sounds so obvious, but it's very important. If you and your partner think that we need to make a profit and we need to have an innovation ready with a certain deadline and we need to make it work, that's a great motivation, but you need to leave space to make mistakes. You are working with students. You don't know how fast they will be, how innovative they will be. Just leave space for them to learn. Make your research and innovation relevant for your local community, meaning cooperate with the small and medium-sized enterprises in the region and be proactive. Don't wait for them to come to you. Go there, have a coffee, show them what you can do. And make your research and innovation sustainable. So embed your research and innovation in your strategic plan, align it with governmental policies, evaluate, and go for the longer lasting partnerships. If you did a project with a partner that worked out great, well, repeat what's good. So then we also made some recommendations beyond the vet centers itself. And I would like to ask Jacob to go into this a bit further.
Yes, thank you very much, Barbara. And perhaps
maybe before we continue, I could ask if there are questions so far. Now, if you have questions, you could also, during our meetings, you could also put them in the chat. We can see you there. Jacob,
yes, we also going to have a short, exactly, like a question session after recommendations, but we can address all together. But before going any further, I think it's also, you know, important to understand that we try to work and address the whole framework and the concept of applied research in vet on the different levels, and you've been just seeing the institutional burden that institutions have to take to implement the whole framework. And it's not the tool for, you know, I would say knowledge dissemination and sharing in the sense of bringing people together. We intended to have this tool for the management of the institution to kind of kick off, to assess themselves where they are exactly with the idea of applied research, and just to map the needs and potential areas that they might want to work on to make this all happen. So it's quite it's quite extensive in the sense of this dimension. Maybe the graph is scary. We tried to for a couple of months find a good representation of this complexity, because every representation also took took away the attention from actual goal to the very detailed parts in here and there. So that's why it was very complex. But as institutions are complex, we have to take with many aspects into consideration to really have some sort of a stream established in the management stream, in the long-term strategy, in the capacities that you might have with your teachers, with your teaching staff, with your infrastructure, with your partnerships outside of the institutions. That's why mapping all of this in one place, we consider this as an added value of the project. There are many added values of different European projects, but we try to make something really that you can walk through and have a basis of at least assessment of where you are. Possibly in the future, we might look for some collaborations, or maybe if you can, test within your institutions this kind of a tool, maybe that would be very relevant outcome, because what exactly the next step of the usual tools like this it's a validation. So we definitely need that step afterwards. I will share with you a bit then the different levels that we considered after framework and after institutional oriented tools we have. We just did a very non-extensive in our opinion list, but we tried to end it at some point because there might be many ideas what to recommend on the national and regional level and on the European level, what could be done to support this framework. And again, we have to take into consideration that excuse me for quick sliding. We have to take in consideration that many countries might already have something in place. As I've been telling you, the example of the Basque country, which has the national approach to facilitation of this whole processes and have the established entities who are responsible for this. But the starting point of many ecosystems, countries, regions is very different again. So what we can do on the country and regional level. First of all, we need to start with embedding applied research in the VET agenda, just to pinpoint that this is the case. For those who are ambitious VET centers who want to integrate the research into their curricula, name it by the problem-based research to carry together with the companies into the curricula of learning, include students into the research activities and the curricula. That's a starting point to embed it in the national VET agendas. That there is simply a possibility that the VET centers can do this, because we also found that in some countries the national agenda does not allow even to use the word research in the VET context. That's a very important starting point to even mention. Then facilitate public-private partnerships. We had seen one example of a model that works in the Netherlands, how public-private partnerships works, who is responsible, and the like linking actor between VET and SMEs. But this kind of a public-private partnerships might be a good idea to consider if we want to enhance this cooperation between applied science universities, VET centers, and private SMEs entities in your region. We need to support also the existing programs. We very much consider the centers of vocational excellence program, like COVIS, the sister initiative, so to say, for the alliances of universities, the Center of Vocational Excellence should be taken as a good example, as a hubs for innovation. We really appreciate how COVIS as initiatives are in a practical way bringing together the actors on the regional level. So perhaps the national support for this kind of initiatives and then upscaling those examples from the COVIS to the national agenda is necessary, and it's recommendable. That's the nature of recommendations on the national level. Then we also have to create applied research ecosystems and develop ecosystems that link VET, SMEs, and higher education. So exactly, the models to doing that could be either centrally steered, it could be more public-private, but we need really to create those ecosystems and also create a platform for the stakeholders to understand what's that relevant. It's not only putting the name applied research in the framework, it also requires a big to convince the stakeholders on the national level that it's worth to do. And at the end of the day, of course, securing funding for applied research, provide targeted funding for those activities and staff training to build institutional capacities in the area. So all the recommendations that are easily said coming from the framework and the self-assessment tool really have to have secured funding on the national level for those kind of programs, because without the support for this huge ambition that is in the sector, there's not possibility to simply go this pathway. There are plenty more. We need also to invest in institutional and HR capacity, which have to ensure stable funding for human resource and institutional support. And of course, it sounds like a recommendation for institutions, but again, this is really a national funding system recommendations for the financial framework of education system, how it's organized in the country level. Establish national coordinating bodies. So create bodies to coordinate applied research efforts, manage partnerships, streamline funding and policy access. Again, could be public, could be private, depends on the system, depends on the culture, depends on what will really work. It's up to the region, up to the country to decide. Broaden the role of the VET centers, redefine VET institutions as research and development partners in national qualification framework. So also qualification framework, the learning outcomes from the levels of education on the VET level, which can be also higher VET and the level 5 of qualification, can also introduce the research skills in their qualification frameworks, at least applied research. And we also think that there is a potential to implement the skills, to include the skills on applied research into the qualification framework learning outcomes. Increase regional funding, align the funding for applied research with the regional economic development priorities, and support lifelong learning pathways. So also it's very important to establish flexible systems to facilitate transition between the VET and further education for lifelong learners. It's working in plenty of countries that the students can really take a path of the vocational education and training and then easily switch to the further education. And for example, if the students gonna be more convinced to go to the more research path, to take a bachelor or take a master's, it's possible. It shouldn't block the pathway for the students, because that's hindering the efforts of VET centers as a choice for the students. You know, it's not smoothing up the decision for the potential learners. And on the European level, we have a couple of them as well. So that was a national one, and then we go through European. We need to disseminate applied research and knowledge, potentially develop a Europe-wide platform for sharing research method, outcomes, best practices. It's a very open recommendation, but having a place where really the community of applied research in the level of vocational education training can refer to, can exchange with each other would be a good start. Link research to green and digital strategies. Of course, align VET applied research with the European Green Deal and digital European goals. There is a change moment now in the European Commission and the European priorities. There will be a new funding priorities, and definitely the skills that the students and the learners need to have also in the VET sector might contribute greatly to the green and digital strategies. So linking these outcomes, linking this sector to the overarching goals of the European Union is crucial to achieve the wider understanding and capacity of our societies to achieve that goals. We have to promote experiential learning as a concept, and the linking applied research with the work-based learning models to enhance that skills and employability. Again, on the European level, it's simply promoting the whole concept that learning can be done in collaboration in the research-based with the SMEs, and that's an added value for the students. We can also think about integrating research in quality assurance frameworks. We could recognize applied research within quality assurance of the VET centers, of the VET frameworks. For example, there is a VET framework that functions. However, we might underline this part as an added value within the frameworks. It depends how institutions and systems wants to organize it. We can advocate for tripartite funding models to also share the responsibility of funding between the governments, the VET centers, SMEs, and the public-private partners as well. Some more secure long-term EU funding, use programs like Horizon and Erasmus to provide stable multi-annual funding, also support mobility within those sectors of VET applied research sectors. We have to also think about clarifying intellectual property rules. There is a big barrier in intellectual property regarding the right for using the outcomes of applied research. It's actually quite positively looking in the established collaboration between the VET centers and the SMEs in the region. It's more of a problem on the university level. However, clarification of these rights and the spirit, I think, behind the intellectual property is necessary to address. And to achieve that, we believe we need to promote an open access approach in many contexts, at least when it comes to the broader European landscape. We need also to launch pan-European campaigns. So if any stakeholder will be interested and there is a national groups of interest or European groups of interest in these topics, we need to continue raising the awareness of the value of applied research in VET through public relation campaigns, We need to build collaboration further between VET and SME, provide tools on the European level, trainings, resources for VET institutions, publications, and so on to effectively engage with the SMEs. One of the biggest problems is actually the language of education and the language of a private sector. It's not sometimes easy to understand for many entities, for the private companies, how they can even collaborate with the education sector. So that's a very important point also in the other education collaborations, because how to bring really the actors from outside into the shaping together the programs, the curriculums, the collaborations, because closing each other in the so-called ivory towers here and there wouldn't really support this collaboration. So the language and the things like a glossary, we believe, might help to understand what can be done. And standardized terminology. That's what I've been saying before. The glossary, the common vocabulary, the common awareness, what is being asked for. I've seen many examples of representatives from the private sector coming to a university or the institution, then simply being asked in such a jargon terms for the collaboration outcomes, for like learning outcomes that has to be achieved by the students for a rightful collaboration, that is very challenging for companies often to even engage on the level of wording. So we have to create way more integrated terminology, but also way more integrated collaboration in that sense. So that were our takes. Of course, it's very quick outlook, and each of recommendations has its own reasoning. Its recommendations has its own discussion behind it. But we just try to share with you where we were heading in creating those collaborations, in creating those recommendations, and I hope that gives you a bit of an overview where the discussion ended, because our project is also ending by the end of the December. So that's probably a starting point, if that rings a bell to your national regional reality for the VET Center being ambitious, for the whole ecosystem of VET Center being ambitious, to establish this type of collaboration, to embed this into the national agenda further. So we just wanted to have a bit of a discussion here, but since we are in the webinar format, I think it's going to be more feasible to put any comments you might have or questions in the chat. We try to answer that, and if not, we will redirect you to the right people, because as the project goes, there have been many different skill set and expertise between the different ecosystems. So some detailed question regarding a certain ecosystem might be redirected to our colleagues. So we would like to know, how do you collaborate with your VET institutions? Is there any strategy at your country present? How does the local national ecosystem facilitates this collaboration? What would be your further recommendation that you might have not seen in the set of recommendations? If you have any comments, suggestions, thoughts, feel free to put them down into the chat. I will stop sharing now. That was us. And that's a thank you. So I will stop sharing now the presentation, and let's have a moment for questions. Don't see much coming, because that might be a flood of information. But exactly the reason for today is to raise your attention that the project was happening. Feel free to really visit the webpage of our project. You can put that in the chat or bring back the PowerPoint slide, but it's AIRinVET.eu.
Yeah, maybe if you don't have so much questions yourself, we would really appreciate if we could learn a bit more from you still. So maybe you could write in the chat if you're involved in research and innovation, and if so, what is essential to be able to do that according to you?
Hello.
Hello, Patricia, we hear you.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering whether you can hear me. Well, I am coming from the quality assurance and the qualification frameworks community, so to say. And I'm currently working for a new quality assurance agency, comparatively new, just a few years ago it was established. And I have to, first of all, thank you very much for very interesting information that you're sharing. Also, much of the ideas are excellent, very welcomed. And I can verify that most of the issues that you raised are really up to date, and your project must be distributed as much as possible to a wider audience, because there are many challenges, and especially recently, there are barriers, both cultural, financial. So all those findings from your project and your ideas for the future, how to overcome them, are very up to date. And so, for example, the issue of the learning outcomes, how to bring to the minds the concept of learning outcomes is really very challenging issue, because for example, I'm working in the field of the defense and security, where the programs are really, we have a quadruple rise of the number of programs in this field, educational programs. Also very interesting, SMEs are involved in now offering short courses, but at very high quality, some of them. And they know nothing about how to present their program, how to attract more students. And they are kind of keeping a very low level, like a type of boutique programs. At the same time, they are facing a huge demand for their services. So how to improve this situation, how to bring them together, and how to help them speak the same language and understand each other. And I've been involved in trainings and seminars where I faced the real difficulties, and especially in instilling the quality assurance culture, the qualifications frameworks culture, because the qualification frameworks, for example, in the sector of defense and security, is different from ECTS, for example. But bringing those systems together is possible. And in recent years, a lot has been done. But we need a critical number of experts and people working on that. At the same time, we receive no attention, appropriate attention, no appropriate support. And as a result, we have also witnessed a large number of those mushrooming, so to say, programs in defense and security being obsolete and insufficient and non-effective, and sometimes even with empty credits because they're not related to the concept of learning outcomes. So all these challenges, somebody has to bring them together in order to be able to reflect on them, because without thinking what we have in fact on the ground, we wouldn't be able to properly reflect on difficulties, on challenges, and to come up with some strategy, as Jakub just mentioned in his presentation, how to overcome those obstacles, how to become kind of partners, speaking the same knowledge and aiming at the same goals. Sometimes this is really very challenging. So congratulations for this. I very much appreciate it. A lot more attention needs to be paid also on quality assurance in VET education, and I have to say that in the last 20 years, I have gathered a lot of experience from different countries, both in Eastern Europe and beyond Europe. And I have to say that the problems are perpetuated. We are talking of the same topics over and over again, which means that we didn't achieve much progress, or at least the progress that we originally intended to achieve, which really bothers me. We have to quickly overcome this situation. And thanks to Juraj and the projects and the involvement of applied research institutions, I think that is possible, that this is the right path forward. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for that comment. Indeed, like you've mentioned, at least I think counted 5 reasons connected to each other with the general, I would say, dilemmas in approach, because we want to some sort of unify the frameworks and allow for the smooth transition, which we from one sector to another, from one level of qualifications to another, and so on. And all of this is adding exactly the capacity, the necessity for capacity for an experts, for people able to transfer and transmit the language, the sectoral capacity is necessary in each of them. And of course, the main problem is the resources, funding, and recently the time for these activities. I think like it's very complex problem, especially in the narrow field or very specific field, as you've been mentioned, defense and security. The same happens with the technology on, I don't know, dentistry, medical studies, and so on. It's quite similar with the finding the language of partners between the specific programs in there. So definitely that's a big challenge, but recognizing this capacity also from the experts, from the expert side, recognizing the local expertise is crucial in there, and the funding should come also from the public sector to recognize it, because otherwise we will be kind of I don't think going in the right direction, so to say. It's very tough to address every part of it, but it's a complex issue. So at least the mapping. Thank you for the good words for the project.
And if I may just to add something, I don't want to occupy all the time for the discussion, but one of the major obstacles in VET applied research is the lack of appropriate knowledge power structures. For example, if you want your research to be acknowledged, so to say, you need to go again to existing university professors and their knowledge structures, and they are used to, they don't like to easily recognize applied research. They consider it as if there is a lack of fundamental theoretical knowledge component in the program. They don't recognize it, that they can't see the benefit of such programs, and they are left unrewarded, so to say, which is very difficult situation. So we have to think also how to create appropriate structures, where knowledge structures, where academic knowledge committees or councils will need to accept also some members of the practice of the businesses, which is very difficult, of course, to achieve. Very difficult.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Patricia, maybe if I can reply to you. In the Netherlands, we have a organization called Practoraat. And it's a way of teaching teachers to also become researchers. Make sure that they don't have only teaching time, but also researching time. And that way, the research done within a VET center can be part of the usual curriculum. And that way, you know that the quality offered within this part of the educational system and within the curriculum can also have some quality assurance. So it's a way to guarantee the quality of research and innovation. So maybe it's a nice example to look into for you at some point. If you like, I can send you a link about it.
Yes, please. Yeah, that's very good idea, because the situation, especially in the Far Eastern Europe, like countries like Georgia or Armenia or other countries, the vet teachers sometimes are at a very low level. They don't even have more than 2 years qualification. You probably know that. So how to
I understand.
engage
And
them?
besides that, we cannot ask from all teachers to have also researching skills. That's just
Indeed.
not feasible.
Yes.
So it's very important to have some people that can be the front runners in this, that can have this specific task and this specific function, and that they like to do this and that they know what they're doing. So we don't aim to teach all teachers to do research and innovation. We aim to have some expertise on board in every vet center. That yes. Yeah. So thank you. I think, Jacob, that we are through the time, isn't it?
Yes, we are through the time. Just very quickly, not really an answer, but just Boris asked about return of investment from the funding of the applied research activities. We more are referring to the structural funding for the sectoral dimension of applied research. Because each of the initiatives that can be done on particular collaboration with the SMEs is assessed separately. We are not speaking about the general sectoral return of investment. I think we were more referring to the structural funding on the national level, same as it's not really measurable how much return of the investment we have from investment in education as a whole. We either aim to be innovative and drive the society through the well-invested education, but we were not really analyzing the return of investment. Just a short answer to that. And exactly, we are done today with the presentation here and with the webinar. Please have a look at our outcomes in more detail if you are interested. It was more of an sharing and pinpointing that we are, rather than going into the details. There will be more to come, hopefully over the years. But we were very happy to have you for 1 hour here today, and looking forward to meet you on the way.